He's a pathetic, ugly loser who gets summoned to another world to be a hero, but he got trash skills, and the kingdom throws him into the countryside. However, he defeats the demon king and created his harem, then marries a hot demon waifu. This story kicks off in a messed up world where humans treat demi-humans like they're nothing, basically slaves. Enter Banaza, the guy who stands out because he doesn't roll with that mindset. He's kind to demi-humans, treating them like actual people, even when humans mock him for it. The demi-humans themselves warn him to stop being so nice, it's dangerous. But Banaza doesn't care. He believes everyone should get along, even if nobody else shares his dream. One day, Banaza gets yanked out of his world and dropped into another. Turns out, he's been summoned to the magical kingdom of Chillin as a hero candidate. Sounds like a big deal, but Banaza quickly learns this place is in chaos. The kingdom is locked in a long war with the Dark Army, and they've been pulling heroes from other worlds to fight for them. Banaza is told he's now part of their plan. When heroes get summoned, their stats reset to level 1. To make up for it, the gods grant them divine revelation, a blessing that gives them crazy powers no normal person can achieve. Banaza realizes he can read the kingdom's language thanks to this process. But when the kingdom checks his stats, they're horrified. He didn't get any divine revelation at all, and his stats are basically trash like him or basic as a common villager. To them, he's a total pathetic loser. Banaza tries to explain that he's just a regular merchant and asks to be sent home. Nobody listens. Instead, they're obsessed with another hero candidate, a blonde guy with maxed out level 999 stats. The kingdom immediately declares this guy their savior and begs him to lead their fight. As king declare the blondie as savior, Banaza is ignored and dismissed. The summoning gate, which brought Banaza to this world, is now closed, so returning home isn't an option. The kingdom admits they messed up but doesn't bother fixing it. Instead, they shove Banaza into a carriage and ship him off to the dangerous northern forest called Delves. They claim they're helping him by giving him a place to live, but it's clear they just want his ugly ass gone. But there is one condition. He has to shut his ugly mouth and never talk about his summoning. The journey to the forest takes 20 days. Banaza tries chatting with his escort, who at first refuses to talk. But Banaza's charm eventually wins him over. He learns that in this kingdom, both humans and demi-humans get treated like garbage if they're seen as useless. When they arrive, Banaza is handed a bottomless bag filled with food, money, and supplies. But there's a catch. The forest is crawling with dark army creatures. Banaza is left to fend for himself. Alone in the forest, Banaza grabs a cheap sword from his inventory. He notices some slimes nearby, thinking they're harmless like the ones in his old world. But he's wrong, the slimes attack. His sword is barely holding up, but he manages to survive. Afterward, he gets a notification. He's leveled up to level 2. But there's something strange. His stats now show weird symbols instead of numbers. As Banaza tries to figure it out, the system announces that he's learned several magic spells. Excited, he checks his inventory and finds out that the bag they gave him was cursed with a monster lore spell. That's why the slimes came after him. He removes the spell easily and wonders why the kingdom would even bother with such a simple trap. Next, Banaza learns the forest is filled with toxic demon gases harmful to humans. The system asks if he wants to purify the area. Banaza figures it's worth a try and activates the spell. What happens next blows him away. His purification magic is so powerful it completely clears the forest of toxins. Banaza levels up hundreds of times, jumping straight to level 367. Back at the castle, the princess is furious. She knows the kingdom was wrong to send Banaza to such a dangerous place, especially since it was their mistake. To make matters worse, the forest is a strategic stronghold for the Dark Army. The king doesn't care. He dismisses Banaza as worthless and focuses on their new hero. But then, word reaches the castle about a massive purification spell in the forest. The king assumes it was their golden-haired hero, only to learn it was Banaza. Meanwhile, Banaza is adjusting to his newfound power. He learns that in this world, leveling up doesn't always require fighting. Just using magic is enough. Even though his stats are strange and hard to understand, Banaza decides to make the most of his situation. The system suggests he try shapeshifting magic to blend in. He experiments with different forms but eventually picks one he's comfortable with. The system also introduces teleportation magic. Banaza tests it out and teleports to a nearby city with ease. In his old world, teleportation was considered advanced magic, but here it feels surprisingly simple. Banaza wonders if he can teleport back to his original world, but the attempt fails. Looking for a way to earn money, Banaza heads to the Adventurers Guild. The guild ranks adventurers based on their accomplishments, with higher ranks offering better rewards. Banaza signs up under the alias Fleo. As a newcomer, he's limited to small jobs. While at the guild, Fleo overhears a girl begging for help. Her family lives near the dangerous forest, and she needs an escort. No one is willing to take the job because of the Dark Army's presence. Fleo steps up and offers to help. The girl explains she doesn't have much to pay him, but Fleo doesn't mind. When he mentions he can teleport them there, everyone in the guild is stunned. Teleportation magic is rare, and they assume he's lying. Fleo, however, knows he can do it easily. Suddenly, royal knight named Banaza shows up and tells him to back off. She doesn't trust him and thinks he's too inexperienced to use a high-level spell like teleportation. Her team agrees and accuses Fleo of being shady. Realizing they're suspicious, Fleo offers to teleport all of them at once to prove he's not lying. They find a hidden spot, and Banaza warns him not to try anything funny. Fleo activates his teleportation spell, and in a blink, they're transported far away. Everyone is shocked, not just because he teleported them, but because he covered such a huge distance. They start thinking he might be some super powerful sorcerer, but Fleo insists he's just a beginner adventurer with a little magic skill. Banaza and her crew quickly apologize for doubting him. Fleo's just relieved they don't see him as a threat anymore. As they look around, the girl notices that the thick malice covering the forest is gone. Fleo thinks about explaining how he purified it, but his system warns him not to say anything, especially to a demon. That warning confuses Fleo, but suddenly Banaza and her team turn on the girl, pointing their weapons at her. They reveal they've been suspicious of her all along. Banaza demands she show her true form. At first, the girl acts scared, but then she drops the act. She reveals her real identity, Fenris, the little sister of Fenrir from the infamous Infernal Four. Fenris unleashes a huge wave of malice that knocks out Banaza and her team. Banaza is shocked to learn the girl is a demon and connected to the Infernal Four. Meanwhile, Fleo is completely unaffected by the malice, which catches Fenris's attention. She's impressed by his resistance and decides to deal with him last. Fleo quickly rescues Banaza, but he knows he can't leave while protecting all four unconscious girls. He taps into his teleportation magic and somehow manages to get everyone out safely. Even he's surprised it worked. Now alone, Fleo refuses to let himself be defeated. He decides to face Fenris head-on. She attacks, but Fleo fights back, casting a spell called Meteoric Leap, which sends him flying into the air. From above, he uses another spell to defend himself. Fenris tries to dodge by teleporting around, but Fleo traps her with a gravitational spell, locking her in place. Fenris is stunned by his power. She struggles to escape while Fleo searches for a spell to restrain her without causing harm. The system suggests using subjugation magic, which would let him control her completely, but Fleo refuses. He doesn't want to use something that feels so wrong. As Fenris gets closer to breaking free, she keeps attacking, but the system blocks her spells. The system urges Fleo again to use subjugation magic, but he stands his ground, determined not to cross that line. Then, Fenris surprises him. She admits she can't escape and tells Fleo to end her life, but Fleo refuses. He explains he's not interested in killing anyone, especially someone who has already surrendered. Fenris is shocked by his mercy. No one has ever treated her like this before. Moved by his kindness, Fenris shifts back into her human form. As he gets embarrassed after seeing her massive cannons, Fleo covers her and tells her she can leave, but she has to promise not to harm humans anymore. Exhausted from using so much magic, Fenris collapses. Fleo checks his bag for clothes to help her and keeps watch while she sleeps. That night, Fleo sits down to check out all the different magic spells he has. He can't figure out why everyone thinks teleportation is such a big deal or why his magic feels so insanely strong. While he's deep in thought, Fenris wakes up. She's surprised she lost the fight, especially since she's resistant to most magic. Then she notices that Fleo healed her injuries while she was unconscious. She tells Fleo that most people would have killed her and even skinned her, but he didn't. She's so impressed by his kindness that she promises never to fight humans again. Not only that, but she says she wants to dedicate her life to him. Fleo tries to tell her it's unnecessary, but she's not having it. She goes as far as offering to become his slave, saying it's the least she can do. Fleo isn't about that slave owner life, so he refuses. But Fenris insists. She says if she can't serve him, then her life has no purpose. Seeing she's serious, Fleo finally agrees to let her stay with him, but only as his companion. Fenris is overjoyed and vows to stay by his side forever. Later, Fleo opens up about how he ended up in this world. He explains how he was summoned, failed as a hero because he didn't have any special abilities, and now doesn't know what to do. He even shows her his real appearance, admitting he feels lost. Fenris assures him she doesn't care. She tells him her race lives only to serve the one they choose as their master, no matter who they are or where they come from. She promises to follow him no matter what, and Fleo finally accepts. Meanwhile, back at the castle, things are falling apart. The king is furious when he finds out the golden-haired hero let his entire army get destroyed. The hero claims the soldiers panicked and says he did everything he could to save them. But another soldier comes forward and spills the truth. The hero stayed at the back, avoiding the fight, and ran away when things got bad. Now, even the troops are starting to hate the so-called hero. The hero himself is frustrated. He hasn't gotten any stronger, even after a month of training. He can handle weak monsters, but anything stronger leaves him helpless. Angry and sulking, he vents to his servant, Suya, while wasting the castle's money on spoiling her instead of focusing on his duties. The next day, Fleo decides to visit the Adventurers Guild to earn some money. He's still trying to get used to Fenris calling him master. At one point, a merchant mistakes them for a married couple, and Fleo realizes it might be easier to travel together if they pretend to be husband and wife. Fenris is thrilled and immediately starts calling him darling, which makes Fleo a little embarrassed. At the guild, Fenris registers as an adventurer under the name Rise. Fleo tells her she has to live as a human and use a fake name to stay safe. Just as they finish, the guild announces a big emergency quest. Psycho bears, powerful beasts that wiped out the golden-haired hero's army, are approaching the city. The guild offers 10 times the usual pay for each bear defeated, hoping to encourage someone to take the job. Most adventurers are too scared to sign up, but Rise insists Fleo can handle it. Fleo is hesitant, reminding her that even the so-called hero failed against these monsters. Rise, however, has a plan. She wants to fight the bears herself to prove how strong her master is. Fleo agrees, and they teleport to the forest where the bears are located. The guild also mentioned an abandoned house in the area that Fleo and Rise can use as a base. While they're setting up, they hear screams nearby. It's Banaza and her team, surrounded by psycho bears. Banaza is badly hurt but still trying to fight. Rise doesn't care much about them, calling them weaklings, but Fleo insists on helping. Fenris fights off the bears with ease, saving the knights. The knights are shocked and grateful, but Fleo is worried they'll figure out Rise's true identity. He quickly introduces her as his travel companion, though Rise wishes he'd call her his wife instead. Before they can relax, another psycho bear charges at Rise. She stops it with just one glare, and the bear seems to surrender. Banaza and her team are stunned. These bears destroyed an army, and now one of them is acting tame. They decide to keep it as a pet, and Fleo agrees, though he uses magic to make sure the bear can't hurt anyone. Back at the house, the knights, Banaza, Blossom, Bolano, and Bilary thank Fleo for saving them. They admit they're desperate for help. The golden-haired hero refuses to lead any more armies, saying he'll only fight if he finds soldiers he can trust. In the meantime, the knights have been ordered to train until they can take down beasts like the psycho bears, but they're not strong enough to do it alone. Fleo is hesitant. He doesn't think he knows enough about magic or combat to teach anyone. At the same time, Rise got angry after seeing this ugly bitch trying to get close to Fleo. So, to avoid any misunderstanding, Fleo explains to girls that Rise is his wife, and they are trying to live quietly while plot developing. The girls decide to withdraw their request, but Rise convinces him otherwise. She tells him he's too kind to ignore people who need help and reminds him that she believes in his strength. Fleo finally agrees to help train the knights, even if he's not confident about it. The knights are thrilled and ask if they can stay at the house with Fleo and Rise. They even offer to pay rent for a corner of the living room. Rise loves the idea, saying there's plenty of space, and it would mean she and Fleo could share a bed since they're married, and can do baby making. Word spreads to the Dark One that the person who purified the Deeves Forest and wiped out the demons wasn't an army or even someone from Clyrode. It was a single individual. This news shocks him. Someone with that much magical power could destroy demons instantly, and the Dark One isn't taking any chances. He orders his subordinates to track this person down and capture them, no matter what. The next morning, Fleo wakes up and finds Rise staring at him. Confused, he asks her why she's doing that. She casually replies that it's perfectly normal since they're married now. Fleo isn't buying it, but Rise doesn't care. The night before, Rise had tried to convince Fleo to share a bed with her, saying it was what married couples do. Fleo, however, wasn't ready for that and told her there were steps they needed to take before anything like that happened. To give her space, he offered to sleep in the hallway. Rise wasn't happy about that and argued that Banaza and the others might find it suspicious if they didn't act like a real couple. Reluctantly, Fleo agreed to stay in the room, though he insisted on keeping things completely innocent. That morning, Rise offers to help Fleo get dressed. Even though he doesn't need help, he lets her assist him. As she helps him take off his shirt, Banaza walks in. She immediately freezes, her face turning red, and quickly runs out, thinking she interrupted something private. Later, the group begins training, but it's clear they're far from ready. When Banaza faces a giant boar, she panics and runs as soon as it charges. Blossom tries to attack next, but she only knows one move and runs out of ideas. Before the boar can hurt her, Rise yells at Banaza to cast a defensive spell. Banaza manages to block the attack just in time. But when Banaza tries to shoot an arrow, it barely scratches the boar. Fleo realizes the team is completely pathetic and has a lot of work ahead to make them capable fighters. Since they'll be staying at the house for a while, he gives them proper rooms. Thanks to the Psycho Bear quest, Fleo now owns the place and doesn't want them sleeping on the floor anymore. The girls are grateful for his kindness. As they're settling in, Rise announces that lunch is ready. Everyone sits down, but there's a problem. Rise has never cooked before. The idea of preparing food is completely new to her. Worried about food poisoning, Fleo takes over the cooking, with Banaza offering to help. Together, they manage to prepare a proper meal. Everyone compliments Fleo on his cooking, but he gives credit to Banaza, saying she was a big help. This makes her blush, and she admits she's better at cooking than fighting. Her noble family had fallen on hard times, so she had to learn to cook instead of relying on a chef. Rise gets jealous, reminding everyone that she's supposed to be the wife. Despite her annoyance, everyone enjoys the meal. Even Rise, who normally avoids vegetables, tries the salad and admits it's surprisingly good. After lunch, Fleo takes the extra boars they hunted to the guild for evaluation. People are impressed by how easily he handles massive beasts. While waiting, Rise asks if she can head into town. Fleo agrees, assuming she has personal business. While Rise is gone, Fleo chats with a guild employee named Lilith. Lilith tells him he's becoming famous for his achievements. Word of his strength has even reached the palace, and they want him to work under the hero as an honorary knight to help defeat the demon lord. Fleo isn't interested. He doesn't see why he should get involved in a fight that has nothing to do with him. To the people of this world, defeating the demon lord is a great honor, but Fleo has no attachment to it. He politely declines, saying he has no intention of joining the hero's mission. After leaving the guild, he finds Rise waiting for him. She looks like she's been through a disaster. Worried, Fleo asks what happened. Rise sheepishly admits she took a cooking class to impress him but underestimated how hard it was. She says she burned everything but is determined to keep trying until she gets it right. Back at the castle, the golden-haired hero is plotting his next move. He's heard about strong adventurers in the guild and wants to recruit them to do his work for him. Fleo and Rise, however, keep getting requests to join his team, and they refuse every time. Rise is annoyed by the constant interruptions and suggests scaring off the messengers, but Fleo reminds her they're just doing their job. At home, training continues, but the group struggles. Blossom avoids sword practice by working in the garden, which is thriving under her care. Fleo realizes she's using gardening as an excuse to skip training. Out in the forest, Rise tries to convince Banaza to practice shooting at live targets, but Banaza refuses, saying the chickens are too cute. Even the promise of fried chicken doesn't sway her. Meanwhile, Banaza keeps passing out after using too much mana. To help her, Fleo makes a magic boosting ring. She's grateful and tries to slip it onto her ring finger, but Rise quickly stops her, reminding everyone that she's Fleo's wife. Just then, Banaza calls for help, panicking over a caterpillar. Rise steps in again, scolding Banaza and reminding everyone that she's the one who's supposed to protect Fleo. After a long day of training, everyone heads inside for dinner. Surprisingly, the food Rise cooked looks edible this time. Fleo, amazed, asks when she learned to cook so well. Rise proudly admits she took a bunch of cooking classes but casually adds that she accidentally set several buildings on fire during the process. She says it was all worth it to make proper meals for him. Meanwhile, out in the woods behind the house, a demon girl named Ulaminas is spying on them. She's sure that Rise is the same feared and powerful demon she knew, but seeing her fawning over a human doesn't make sense. Curious and confused, Ulaminas sticks around to figure out what's going on. Her spying doesn't last long because Rise notices her and drags her inside. Fleo offers Ulaminas a cup of tea, but Rise cuts straight to the point, asking why she's here uninvited. Ulaminas explains that as a member of the Dark One's forces, she was sent to scout the area. However, seeing Rise here with a human piqued her interest. Rise bluntly tells Ulaminas that she's living here now with her husband. Ulaminas is stunned to hear that Rise is married. As she watches Fleo calmly sitting across from her, she grows even more confused. Even her special skills can't read Fleo's stats, something not even the Dark One can hide from her. This makes her realize Fleo must be insanely powerful. Ulaminas changes the subject, mentioning how the Thieves' Forest was mysteriously cleared of magical beasts overnight. Hearing this, Fleo remembers the purification spell he cast and realizes it must have worked on the entire forest. Ulaminas processes this information and realizes he's the one who wiped out Fengaril, and his army, Fenris's brother included. Shocked, Ulaminas asks Rise how she could marry the person responsible for her brother's death. Rise shuts her down, saying Fengaril was a proud warrior who wouldn't want people mourning him. She explains that Fleo's strength is part of why she fell for him, and nothing will change how she feels. Unbeknownst to them, the knights overhear the entire conversation. They now realize that Rise is Fenris, the demon who nearly killed them earlier. Terrified, the group doesn't know what to do. Meanwhile, Ulaminas challenges Fleo to a match, curious to see how strong he really is. She plans to defeat both Fleo and Rise at once, but Rise won't let that happen, thinking Ulaminas is trying to steal her man. Fleo agrees to the match. The rules are simple, magic is allowed, and it ends when someone gives up. Ulaminas attacks first, jumping into the air and casting spells to distract Fleo. But Fleo dispels her magic effortlessly and counters with a spell that ties her up mid-air. Unable to move, Ulaminas has no choice but to surrender. The next day, Fleo has a talk with the girls. He apologizes for not telling them about Rise's true identity, explaining he didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble. Fenris assures them that she's no longer part of the Dark Army and is fully committed to Fleo. Banaza, though hesitant, agrees not to report anything to the castle. She reasons that Rise hasn't caused harm and has been helping them for the past month. Rise is relieved to hear this, but her happiness is short-lived when she notices Ulaminas outside again, this time with a dragon army. Ulaminas orders the dragons to attack, but Fleo is more fascinated than scared, seeing dragons for the first time. When they unleash their hellfire, Fleo counters with powerful magic, wiping out most of the dragon army in one move. The surviving dragons flee, realizing they don't stand a chance. Blossom praises Fleo for taking on so many dragons at once. Jokingly, she wishes she'd thrown her hoe at one to snag the Dragon Slayer title. Fleo tells her to go for it, boosting her attack as she tosses her hoe at a fleeing dragon. The attack pierces its neck, and Blossom earns the Dragon Slayer title. The other knights rush to Fleo, asking for his help to claim their own titles, but the remaining dragons are long gone. Blossom, however, is thrilled with her achievement. Meanwhile, in the Dark Army, Lord Gaul hears about Fleo's power and is stunned. He decides it's time to personally challenge this human and put an end to the threat. Back at the house, Fleo sets up a barrier around their home to alert them of any approaching demons. Rise, still annoyed by Ulaminas, thinks Fleo is defending her when he tells her to calm down. But Fleo is more concerned about the accusations that he caused Fengaril's death. Brushing it off, he focuses on the group's training. Blossom can't stop staring at her screen, still amazed she earned the Dragon Slayer title. While the others admire her achievement, Banaza feels left behind. She wishes she could have claimed the title herself, believing it could have restored her family's noble status. While hunting, a mysterious man appears in the forest, looking for Rise. Banaza is suspicious and demands to know why he's here. The man admits he's from the Dark Army but insists he just wants to check on Rise. Before leaving, he asks Banaza to pass along a message. If Rise ever wants to talk about the past, he's willing to meet. As he walks away, he reveals his name is Gozel. When Fleo and Rise arrive, Banaza tells them everything. Rise immediately recognizes the name as fake. Fleo explains that his barrier detected a demon, and Banaza is stunned to learn that the man she spoke to was actually Lord Gaul, the Dark Lord himself. Terrified, Banaza realizes she raised her sword against the Dark Lord and fears the demons will come after her ass. The next day, Gozel shows up at Fleo's place, ready to hang out, but the guy is blown away by how chill Fleo is about it. Meanwhile, Banaza is straight up freaked out. She's not used to having Gozel around and doesn't know how to act. Then Gozel drops a bomb. He's there because of Ulaminas. Banaza is part of this whole thing, but she has no idea what's going on. She's sitting there, scared out of her mind, trying to figure out why she's stuck next to the Dark Lord. Rise assumes the worst, that Gozel's there for revenge. But plot twist, Gozel reveals the real reason. He wants Fleo to join the Dark Army. Fleo, calm as ever, shuts him down immediately, which catches Gozel off guard. Gozel figures Fleo's hiding out in the forest because he's against humans. But nope, Fleo's got no beef with humans or demons. He he just doesn't see the point of picking sides. To top it off, Fleo casually mentions he's not even from this world and doesn't get why humans and demons are fighting in the first place. Turns out, Rise never explained the war because Fleo didn't care enough to ask. Gozel admits that nobody really remembers why the war started 500 years ago. It began when the first Dark Lord, who came from another world, took charge. Back then, demons were oppressed by humans, so they accepted the Dark Lord as their leader to fight back. Since then, 12 generations of Dark Lords have passed, and the ideals have shifted over time. Now, Gozel, the current Dark Lord, isn't even interested in ruling the world. But don't get it twisted. He flexes his insane power to remind everyone he's still the king of demons. Gozel warns Fleo not to mess around and to think carefully about joining the Dark Army. Fleo, unfazed, says Gozel is seriously overestimating him and repeats that he's not getting involved in this war. Gozel finds Fleo's calm attitude amusing and even admits he's impressed. He thinks Fleo must have been just as stubborn when he turned down the Human King. As Gozel gets ready to leave, he makes it clear he's not giving up on convincing Fleo. Gozel can't wrap his head around how Fleo, a human, stays so chill in his presence. He's also impressed by Banaza, who's frozen in shock. The next morning, Banaza wakes up to find Gozel casually munching on breakfast at Rise's place. Rise tells him to leave after he's done eating, but Gozel keeps bugging Banaza to join him. She avoids him by making excuses and sneaking off to train. But Gozel isn't giving up. He admires how hardworking she is, even though she keeps dodging him. Meanwhile, the king back at the castle is worried about the Dark Lord visiting Fleo so often. He gets angry because Fleo has been ignoring his summons and now seems to be siding with the demons. The king plans to send soldiers to capture Fleo, but the princess advises caution. She thinks forcing Fleo could push him straight into the Dark Army's hands. The king dismisses her, and the Golden Hero backs him up, insisting they need to act now. At the demon castle, Ulamanas warns Gozel that visiting Fleo's place alone might be risky, but Gozel says he trusts Fleo more than the Human King. He's determined to recruit Fleo, even if it's a long shot. Ulamanas mentions their troops are ready, but Gozel hasn't decided when to make a move. She's also suspicious of how often he visits Fleo, wondering if there's more to it than recruiting. Back at Fleo's place, he talks about making gear from dragon scales to sell. He's got a prototype but needs more work to get it ready. He's determined to make this business successful so they can live independently. Rise worries that Fleo might regret turning down the king's offer, thinking he could have made a fortune and used his full power. She even wonders if he's avoiding the fight because of her, but Fleo sets her straight. He's just not interested in fighting unless absolutely necessary. Rise admires his kindness, even if he doesn't see it that way. Suddenly, the Golden Hero shows up at their doorstep with an ultimatum. Join him or be labeled a traitor to humanity. Fleo apologizes for the trouble but firmly refuses to pick sides. The hero tries to intimidate him, but Fleo stays calm. When the hero threatens the girls, Fleo gets serious. He suggests they settle things elsewhere and casts a massive teleportation spell that moves everyone, including the house and fields, to a new location. The hero is left stunned, while Gozel, back at the demon castle, loses his cool. He blames the humans for everything and orders a full-scale attack on the kingdom. Ulamanas is thrilled, but Gozel cautions against getting too close to the humans' purification spell. His instincts are right. The king gathers all the mages to cast the dangerous spell, knowing it could backfire. As the demons retreat, Fleo and the girls settle into their new home, far from the chaos. Banaza is relieved to finally escape Gozel's attention. Fleo apologizes for all the trouble, but Rise reassures him that she's just happy to be by his side. They decide to celebrate their new home with a feast. Meanwhile, the king realizes their defenses are crumbling under the demons' attack. With the Golden Hero hiding in a southern stronghold, the king is forced to make a tough decision. At the same time, Gozel halts his troops, anticipating the humans' next move. As the purification spell is cast, both sides brace for what's to come. Fleo comes back home and notices Rise acting super friendly, even more than usual. He had spent the day checking out shops to sell his dragon gear and looking into armor prices. Meanwhile, Bailary's got plans too. She's thinking about raising horses to rent out for pulling carts. She's hoping it'll be a steady way to earn money and help out with household expenses. Blossom's on the same wavelength. She's planning to sell veggies from their garden. Banaza and Bolano, on the other hand, feel a little left out. They think they don't have any useful skills to contribute or make money. Rise reassures them, saying it's the pack leader's wife's job to take care of the household. Banaza, though, isn't so sure about the whole pack concept. Fleo steps in and tells them not to worry about it. They can focus on leveling up their combat skills instead. Over at the castle, the Dark Army had to retreat because of the purification spell. The spell is so strong it's going to last 3 months, and until then, the Dark Army can't even step into that area. But here's the catch. Casting the spell drained most of their mages. Many of them are passed out from overexertion, and even the king is down for the count. With the king out of commission, the princess steps up, ready to take charge of royal duties. Her first move, stripping the golden hero of his hero status. The princess shocks everyone by saying it's only fair. While the kingdom is fighting for survival, the so-called hero has done absolutely nothing. Unfortunately, they don't have enough mages to summon a new hero, so she decides to consult the oracle for advice. Meanwhile, the hero's sulking about losing his status. He claims they'll be begging him to come back when the Dark Lord attacks, but no one's paying him any attention. That night, Fleo compliments Rise on how she's been holding everything together. She tells him she'd do anything for him, but before he can say much else, she falls asleep. Fleo sits there, reflecting on how he was thrown into this world all alone. But because of Rise, he's found a home and can keep moving forward. The next day, the girls hype up Fleo and Rise to go on a date. Fleo gets all shy about it, but they remind him they're married, so he agrees. During the date, they have a blast doing different activities. After grabbing a meal, Rise says she wants to make the most of their time, so they hit the town market. Fleo offers to buy her whatever she wants as a thank you for all her help. Rise gets excited. She's never been given a gift before. After browsing around, Fleo picks out a beautiful brooch for her and nervously tells her it looks great on her. Then he quickly backtracks, saying he meant the brooch, not her. Later that night, the other girls notice Rise staring at the brooch non-stop. They realize the date must have gone well, and some of them are a little jealous. The next morning, Fleo wakes up shocked to find Rise in his bed. She must have wandered in during the night, and while he lets her stay, he knows he won't be getting much sleep. Back at the castle, the hero is furious about losing his title. He sneaks into the treasury, looking for something to help him take down the Dark Lord and reclaim his glory. Tsuya still believes in him and calls him a hero, which strokes his ego. While exploring, he hears a mysterious voice offering him unlimited power if he's willing to set her free. The voice guides him to a hidden room where he finds a sword. When the voice starts mocking him for being scared, the hero, insulted, grabs the sword. As he draws it, there's a massive surge of energy, and a spirit named Haya appears. She tells him she'll grant him 3 wishes in exchange for freeing her. The hero smirks, ready to make his first wish. Meanwhile, the princess consults the oracle, stressing about how to deal with the situation before the purification spell wears off. Suddenly, strange markings appear on everyone's necks. The oracle identifies them as collars of sacrifice, which means someone has made a deal with a dangerous spirit. The princess reveals the horrifying truth. Long ago, the king of Clyrode made a wish to defeat the Dark Lord, but half the continent's population was sacrificed in return. Sealing the spirit required even more lives, but now someone has unleashed her again. The princess sends troops to the treasury, determined to catch the intruder before the spirit grants another deadly wish. Back in town, Fleo is working on selling his dragon scale shield. A shopkeeper is blown away by its quality and offers top dollar for it. He also tells Fleo he's heard rumors about dragon meat appearing at a butcher's shop. Fleo doesn't spill the details but confirms his materials come from the same source. The shopkeeper is thrilled and offers to help Fleo sell more items like this in the future. Banaza watches all this, amazed at Fleo's skills. Not only did he make a top-tier shield, but he also locked in a solid business deal. Rise casually mentions that Fleo used to be a merchant, which makes Banaza jealous. She admits she wishes she had someone like Fleo in her life. Ray teases her, saying the Dark Lord seems interested, but that doesn't make her feel any better. Rise, proud of Fleo's accomplishments, can't help but feel a little sad, knowing they'll have less time together as he gets busier with his work. Rise had one small wish. She wanted Fleo to spend time with her whenever he had the chance. Fleo agreed, and they were both smiling until Fleo's system suddenly flashed a warning. A spirit was heading straight for them. Moments later, Haya appeared, and Fleo immediately questioned why she was there. What Fleo didn't know was that the so-called hero had made a wish for Haya to kill him. The hero, humiliated by his failures, wanted revenge, and Haya was now on a mission to fulfill that wish. Without wasting any time, she attacked. But Fleo's system activated an automatic defense spell, creating a barrier around him and Rise. The first attack was blocked, but then Rise stepped in front of Fleo to protect him. The next moment was horrifying. Haya's attack shattered Rise's brooch, and she took the hit directly. She dropped to the ground, telling Fleo to run. Fleo, frozen in shock, couldn't move. Haya, irritated that her attack had missed its mark, unleashed another spell. However, Fleo's system kept activating defensive magic, shielding him and Rise. Fleo's only concern was whether Rise would survive, but her injuries were severe. Haya paused, clearly impressed that Fleo's system could block her spells. She decided to step up her game, preparing a more powerful attack. Fleo desperately tried to heal Rise, but his spell failed. Her injuries were beyond what normal healing magic could fix. Fleo's panic grew as he noticed Rise's lifeless expression. At that moment, Haya launched Origin of Light, a devastating spell meant to finish them off. To her surprise, Fleo's system absorbed the spell entirely, granting him Origin of Light and Darkness magic. For the first time, Fleo felt an overwhelming anger boil inside him. Banaza, watching from the sidelines, was shocked by the intensity of his rage. Fleo vowed to make Haya pay for what she'd done to Rise. He activated his time magic, restoring Rise's body to its original state, but he couldn't bring her back to life. Haya was stunned. A human using such advanced magic was unheard of. She barely had time to react before Fleo punched her in the face, sending her flying backward. Haya, who had mastered all magic types, couldn't believe someone would dare attack her physically. But Fleo didn't care. He slammed her into the ground and cancelled out her Origin of Darkness magic when she tried to counter. Lifting her by the head, Fleo looked her in the eyes with pure rage. Haya used her appraisal skill to assess him and discovered something terrifying. Fleo's stats were infinite. She couldn't comprehend how he had such limitless power. Fleo didn't hold back. He hurled her into a wall, then punched her in the gut, breaking through every defensive spell she tried to use. Meanwhile, Rise suddenly woke up, and Banaza checked on her. Rise, confused, asked how she was still alive when she should have been dead. Banaza explained that Fleo had used his magic to save her. As they turned their attention back to Fleo, they saw him relentlessly beating Haya into submission. Rise didn't stop him. She felt a strange joy seeing Fleo fight for her. Despite her confusion, she was proud that he wasn't showing Haya any mercy. Haya, once confident and untouchable, now looked completely defeated. Fleo grabbed her neck, ready to finish her off. She begged for her life, but Fleo was too blinded by rage to listen. He was convinced Haya had killed Rise, and he wanted revenge. Just as he was about to end her, Rise ran to him and begged him to stop. She told him it was touching to see him fight so fiercely for her, but she didn't want him to lose himself or break his rule about sparing those who surrender. Her words snapped Fleo out of his anger. Realizing Rise was alive, he hugged her tightly, feeling an immense relief wash over him. Haya, shaken and barely conscious, admitted defeat. Fleo patched her up, and when she woke, she begged for forgiveness. She explained she didn't want to fight anymore, knowing she had no chance against him. But Fleo and Rise weren't sure what to do with her. Handing her over to the castle seemed risky, as she was far too powerful for anyone there to control. Rise came up with a solution. They should make Haya Fleo's servant. Fleo hesitated, but Rise insisted it was the best way to keep an eye on her. Haya, realizing she had no other option, swore loyalty to Fleo. She promised never to harm anyone again. Shocking Haya herself, humans typically held on to grudges, but Fleo forgave her. Later, Fleo used a repair spell to fix the town, avoiding the dangers of his time magic. Haya warned him earlier that using time spells could have disastrous effects if not handled carefully. Once everything was restored, Fleo introduced Haya to the other girls at home. They were understandably nervous about living with someone so powerful, but Banaza reassured them, saying Haya wouldn't harm anyone as long as Fleo was around. That night, Fleo sat alone, struggling with everything he'd learned. He wasn't just an ordinary person, he was some kind of supreme being with limitless power. Banaza found him and asked if he was okay. Fleo admitted he felt lost, unsure how to control his powers or stay true to himself. Banaza reminded him that not everything in life is black and white, and she was grateful for him and Rise opening her eyes to that. Later, Fleo went to his room and found Rise deep in thought. She suddenly asked if he planned to return to his original world. Fleo reassured her he had no intention of leaving, especially since his world wasn't kind to demi-humans like her. Instead, he asked if Rise wanted to be his real wife. Overjoyed, Rise kissed him for the first time. Their sweet moment was interrupted when they noticed Haya standing in the doorway, watching them. Embarrassed, they told her to leave, but Haya didn't understand what the fuss was about. She teased them, saying plot development best thing, leaving Fleo flustered. Even though the whole Jinn situation was dealt with, Princess Elizabeth was still searching for Fleo. All she knew was that he was supposed to be super strong, but the locals had no idea who she was talking about. Frustrated, she left another shop without any clues. She felt hopeless. How could she find someone with so little information? Meanwhile, Fleo was at home, enjoying a big meal with his crew. This time, Haya helped with the preparations. She told Rise she could have used magic to cook everything instantly, but Rise insisted on doing it by hand. She said it made the food more special, and as Fleo's wife, she wanted to do things her way. Haya offered to help out more, saying she'd take care of all the cleaning and laundry from now on. Haya's offer left everyone else feeling a bit awkward. If she handled all the chores, the rest of them would feel pretty useless. Blossom wasn't having it. She said she'd work even harder in the fields to make sure she was still doing her part. Bilary was trying her best to take care of the stables, but it was tougher than she expected. Bolano, on the other hand, was struggling with guilt. She felt like she'd let her family down by leaving the Knight's Order before becoming a mage like her father and brother. She wasn't sure if she should keep training, but Fleo's patience and encouragement gave her hope. She didn't want to waste the effort he was putting into teaching her. Things were peaceful until Blossom suddenly screamed from the fields. Bolano and Bilary ran outside and saw a magical beast tearing up the crops. The creature charged at them, but Bolano quickly cast a magic shield, blocking the attack. Her training was paying off, and the beast couldn't harm them. Balirasa arrived, apologizing for the chaos. She explained that she had found the beast earlier while hunting. It had seemed calm, so she hadn't wanted to kill it. Now, though, she realized it might have been a mistake. Bilary stepped forward and figured out what was wrong. She told her companion, Saib, to turn back into his bunny form to calm the beast. Then, using a makeshift bridle, she tamed it. Everyone praised her for handling the situation so well. Feeling proud, Bilary asked Balirasa if they could use the land around Fleo's house to raise animals or grow crops. But the problem was that the land belonged to a local lord. They couldn't just take it. Bilary remembered how Fleo had bought the rights to his house's location and thought they could do something similar. The idea sparked new plans in her mind. Meanwhile, Fleo and Rise were in town. Rise was excited to spend time with Fleo, even if it wasn't a real date. Fleo had come to sell some gear, but just being with him made her happy. While Fleo talked business with a shopkeeper, Rise waited outside, admiring how focused and confident he looked. Suddenly, the sky turned dark, and a giant magic circle appeared overhead. A terrifying spirit, Damalinas, descended into the village, riding on the shoulder of a blonde monster. Sensing danger, Fleo quickly returned to Rise. She explained what was happening, and Fleo decided to protect the town no matter what. Damalinas wasted no time attacking Princess Elizabeth and her guards. The guards fought bravely but didn't stand a chance against her powerful magic. Damalinas laughed, enjoying her revenge as she prepared to crush the princess. Haya showed up just in time, casting a fire spell to shield the princess. Damalinas was furious that Haya had interfered, but Haya didn't care. She was only there to follow Fleo's orders and protect the townsfolk. Damalinas attacked Haya with lightning magic, but it didn't work. Haya was too powerful to be harmed by any magic from this world. Frustrated, Damalinas ordered the blonde monster to attack, but Haya easily blocked every move. Running out of options, Damalinas used dark magic to make the monster bigger and more powerful. But before her spell could take full effect, Fleo arrived and cancelled it with his release magic. Cornered, Damalinas was desperate. Haya asked Fleo for permission to finish Damalinas off, and he agreed. She cast a spell to pull Damalinas' soul out of the blonde monster and sealed it into a candy-like object. Then, without hesitation, Haya ate it, trapping Damalinas in her mind forever. Haya explained that Damalinas would be re-educated in her mindscape to change her evil ways. With Damalinas defeated, the blonde hero, who had caused the whole mess, was left for the castle guards to deal with. Fleo didn't want to waste his energy on him. Princess Elizabeth finally found Fleo and introduced herself. She apologized for all the trouble he'd faced from the kingdom and explained that the blonde hero had been fired. She asked Fleo to become the new hero for the kingdom. Fleo politely declined. He told her he wasn't interested in fighting for humanity or getting involved in politics. All he wanted was a quiet life with his wife. Fleo finally made it back home, and the girls didn't waste any time swarming him with a big idea. They wanted him to think about expanding their land. Bilary was excited about raising magical beasts, and Blossom wanted more space for her crops. They figured they could grow more vegetables and use horses to carry them into town to sell for extra money. Rise thought the idea was great, but she was worried about magical beasts. She said they might be too wild and dangerous since they weren't like regular animals. She suggested sticking with horses instead. Bilary explained that keeping horses was expensive and thought magical beasts would calm down if they had plenty of space to roam. Fleo liked the plan and offered to talk to the local lord about buying land, but the girls wanted to handle it themselves, saying they wanted to contribute to the household. Fleo didn't mind, but he warned them that land wasn't cheap. When they calculated the cost, they were shocked. Even in the countryside, the price was crazy high. Fleo explained it was because demons had stopped showing up since he arrived, making the area much safer and driving up land prices. The girls started thinking about selling their belongings to afford the land, but Fleo told them there was no need. He offered to pay for the land himself since he was part of the household. The girls didn't want Fleo to take on all the responsibility, so they came up with a deal. They agreed to pay him 30% of the profits they made using the land. Fleo thought it was a fair plan, and the girls got straight to work once the land deal was finalized. To help them make more money, Fleo suggested growing something unique that wasn't common in the area. He said he could use magic to adjust the climate and make it possible. Blossom, however, didn't like the idea. She believed farming should be done the natural way and didn't want to rely on magic. Haya offered to handle the climate control magic, but Blossom still refused. She said magic farming didn't feel right. Haya warned that doing it by hand would take much longer and be less efficient. Milano agreed with Haya and encouraged Blossom to try it out, saying it could help them learn new things. Milano then shared some exciting news. She'd been accepted into the Magic Academy. Not only that, but they thought she was so talented that they offered her a teaching position. She was grateful to Fleo for helping her improve her magic skills and wanted Blossom to see how magic could make a difference. After a little convincing from Fleo, Blossom finally agreed to give it a try. Now, everyone was contributing to the household in their own way, except for Banaza, who felt like she wasn't pulling her weight. Watching everyone work made Fleo think about his long-term goals. He told Rise that he wanted to open a shop one day. Rise loved the idea and promised to spread the word to her demon friends. She even said she'd ask them to take human forms for the grand opening so they wouldn't scare anyone in town. Fleo then surprised Rise with a special gift, a wedding ring. He asked her to accept it as a sign of their marriage, and Rise happily agreed. Meanwhile, back at the castle, the blonde hero was locked in the dungeon. He was set to be executed for all his crimes, including breaking into the treasury, unleashing dangerous threats, and being generally annoying. Banaza, on the other hand, was dealing with strange dreams. She imagined herself in a wedding dress, surrounded by the demon army, with Gozel, the Dark Lord, calling her his wife. He even promised to conquer the world as a wedding gift. Before he could kiss her, she woke up in a panic. The next morning, Banaza was still rattled from the dream. While they were baking together, Rise asked if she was okay. Banaza brushed it off, saying she hadn't been sleeping well. Rise guessed she was in love, saying dreams often reflect what someone secretly wants. The other girls overheard and immediately got curious. They quickly figured out that Banaza's dream was about Gozel. Banaza denied having feelings for him, saying he only visited to see Fleo. But the girls weren't buying it. They pointed out that Gozel always left when Banaza wasn't around. They teased her about talking to Gozel to clear things up, saying she might be able to improve the relationship between humans and demons. When the topic turned to marriage, the girls asked Rise how she fell for Fleo. Fleo, overhearing from the other room, felt super embarrassed listening to Rise talk about him. Before the conversation could go further, one of Fleo's alarms went off. He had set up a barrier around the village to keep demons out, but something managed to get through. Haya sensed demonic energy nearby and confirmed there was a demon in the area. Fleo wasn't sure if it was a threat yet since it hadn't caused any harm, so he told everyone to stay alert and watch over the town. At the palace, Princess Elizabeth received surprising news. When Fleo had refused to become the kingdom's hero, he gave her a bag of gold coins to help rebuild the city. But these coins weren't ordinary, they were only given to Banaza, the hero the kingdom had abandoned. Elizabeth started to suspect that Fleo and Banaza were the same person. If that was true, it explained why Fleo wanted nothing to do with the royal family. She wanted to apologize to him for how poorly he'd been treated. Before she could act, a guard rushed in with bad news. The blonde hero and Tsuya had escaped from the dungeon and flooded part of the castle during their getaway. The guard admitted he didn't think the blonde hero was smart enough to pull off an escape. Blondie and Tsuya, meanwhile, were hiding in the bushes outside the castle. Tsuya was furious about being on the run, but Blondie blamed Haya for all his problems. He insisted he wasn't a thief, even though he had stolen a magical bag during the chaos. When Blondie opened the bag, he was disappointed to find no gold. Instead, there was a bottomless water pouch and a strange shovel. The guards almost found them, but Blondie used the shovel to dig underground and escape. Hiding in their tunnel, Blondie and Tsuyu were amazed by how powerful the shovel was. It was no wonder it had been locked away in the castle treasury. But now, they'd to figure out how to get the fuck out of here. At the demon castle, Gozel sat on his throne, listening to Ulamina's give her report. She told him that her team still hadn't found Fleo or his crew, especially Banaza. She apologized, saying they'd searched everywhere they could, but maybe Fleo had already left the country. Gozel shook his head, not buying it. He explained that teleportation magic only works if you've been to the place before, and Fleo hadn't been in this world long enough to visit other countries. Ulamina's then asked why they were spending so much time looking for Fleo instead of focusing on attacking the humans. She thought if they brought enough magical beasts to the border, they could overwhelm the purification magic and create paths into the kingdom. Maybe they could even take down the human castle. Gozel stopped her and explained that Fleo could handle purification magic all by himself. Even if they broke through and attacked Fleo's home, he could just keep using the spell to push them back. That's why finding Fleo first was so important. Ulamina's was still worried. She said that demons were getting impatient because it didn't seem like Gozel was serious about the war. Gozel stood up and walked toward her. Ulamina's thought he was angry, but instead, he apologized. He told her he didn't see the point in sacrificing so many lives just to beat the humans. Hearing this, Ulamina's finally understood his reasoning. But as they talked, someone was secretly eavesdropping. A sneaky demon with glasses overheard everything and went straight to Ulamina's brother, Isekaied, to spill the beans. Isekaied was furious. He didn't like that Gozel wasn't leading the army to fight humans, and he was even angrier that Gozel wanted to recruit a human like Fleo. Isekaied didn't care how strong Fleo was, he was a human, and that meant he had to go. Fufun, another demon, agreed with Isekaied. Together, they decided that Gozel wasn't fit to lead the demons. Isekaied declared himself the new Dark Lord and began making plans to take over. Back in the kingdom, Fleo had just finished shopping with Rise. Even though his barrier had detected something earlier, everything in town seemed calm, so he wasn't too worried. With some extra time on their hands, Fleo suggested they grab lunch together. As they walked, they noticed a general supply store they liked was shutting down. Curious, they went inside to ask the elderly owner what was going on. She explained that she was closing because her supplier's warehouse had been destroyed in a recent battle with the demon army. She had no way to restock her inventory. After that, they made their way to the restaurant. Just as they arrived, they bumped into Banaza. She offered to treat them to lunch, saying it was her way of thanking them for everything they'd done for her. Rise wasn't thrilled. This was supposed to be her romantic lunch with Fleo, but they accepted Banaza's offer anyway. While they waited to eat, Haya suddenly showed up, looking worried. She warned them that a powerful being was heading their way. To Banaza's horror, it turned out to be Gozel. Gozel didn't come to fight, though. Instead, he joined them for lunch. He said his intel squad had detected strange magical energy in the area, which brought him there. It was a lucky coincidence that he ran into them. During the meal, Gozel asked Banaza if he could talk to her alone. This made her incredibly nervous, thinking he might want to propose or something. As they ate, Gozel shared how much he used to love human food. Before becoming the Dark Lord, he would sneak into human restaurants just to enjoy it. When Gozel asked Banaza if she was good at cooking, she got embarrassed and didn't answer. Rise jumped in, saying Banaza was amazing at making desserts, which only made Banaza blush even more. Fleo asked Gozel why he seemed so interested in human culture. Gozel admitted he liked it but added that studying a kingdom's culture helped him understand its military strength. Banaza couldn't hold back anymore and confronted Gozel about all the harm he'd caused humans. Gozel stayed calm and explained that the real problem was malice, a substance found in all demons. While some demons, like Rise and himself, could control it, most couldn't. When too many demons gathered in one place, the malice could harm humans. He also explained that demons were naturally stubborn and quick to fight, making peace talks nearly impossible. After dropping this heavy truth, Gozel apologized for ruining the mood and left. As Fleo and Rise walked home, Fleo couldn't stop thinking about what Gozel had said. At first, Fleo thought this world was better than his old one because there wasn't as much discrimination against demi-humans. But the conflict between humans and demons seemed even worse. Meanwhile, Blondie and Tsuyu were still stuck in the pit they dug to escape the guards. Tsuyu managed to climb out first, but her bulky armor made it tough. Blondie complained about how slow she was, and when he tried to climb, he got distracted by Tsuyu's curves. He slipped and fell right back into the pit. The next day, Rise cooked up some incredible burgers for everyone. They were better than anything you'd get at a restaurant, and the whole crew was blown away. While they were enjoying the meal, there was a knock at the door. Fleo opened it to find Princess Elizabeth and her guards. Fleo stepped outside and asked what she wanted, reminding her that he'd already turned down the offer to be the kingdom's hero. The princess apologized for how the kingdom had treated him. She admitted that summoning him to this world and then abandoning him when he didn't seem useful was wrong. Surprised by her honesty, Fleo invited her inside. Balarosa served her tea, and the princess thanked her politely, which Balarosa seemed to enjoy. Then the princess asked for a private conversation with Fleo. Rise immediately objected, saying she wasn't going to leave her husband alone with someone who had treated him so poorly. Fleo held Rise's hand and told the princess that if she couldn't talk in front of Rise, she might as well leave. The princess agreed, and the rest of the girls left the room. Once they were alone, the princess dropped to her knees and apologized on behalf of the kingdom. She admitted that ditching Fleo in the forest and putting spells on his belongings were terrible mistakes. Fleo told her to get up, saying he wasn't a hero, just a simple merchant. He asked her to get to the point. The princess pulled out a magic map showing where the kingdom's army was stationed. She explained that the castle's protective spell was weakening and that they didn't have enough troops to defend all the towns. She asked Fleo to help protect the smaller towns. Rise was furious, accusing the princess of trying to drag Fleo into a war he didn't want to be part of. The princess explained that she wanted to remove the king from power and needed Fleo's help to prove she could be a better leader. Fleo realized her plan. She wanted to show that she trusted him by sharing sensitive information, proving he wasn't siding with the demons. The princess confirmed this, asking Fleo once more for his help. The ex-hero and Tsuya were still on the run, hiding in some bushes. Tsuya was starving and started crying, saying she couldn't take it anymore. The ex-hero pulled out a few cookies from his magic bag and handed them to her. As she ate, he asked why she was still tagging along with him. He said she could have ditched him anytime, and things would have been easier for her. Tsuya looked at him and said the same thing. He could have left her behind too. She called herself useless and said she was slowing him down. She figured he'd have a better chance of escaping without her. Her words caught him off guard. Before he could respond, Tsuya said something unexpected. She told him that when he broke them out of the dungeon, he looked cool, like a real hero. She even said he had moments where he wasn't a complete loser. The ex-hero blushed and stood up, trying to shake it off. He told her to hurry up so they could get moving again. Suddenly, a black spider appeared out of nowhere. Before they could react, the spider shot out webs and trapped Tsuya. The ex-hero tried to help, but he got caught too. A creepy demon woman, who called herself Mama, showed up. She smiled wickedly and said they were perfect for her next experiment. Both of them froze in fear, realizing they were in big trouble. Meanwhile, at Fleo's house, it was late at night and Fleo couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, thinking about everything the princess had told him earlier. Rise noticed he was deep in thought and came over to sit next to him. Fleo told her he hated fighting but couldn't stand the idea of small towns being destroyed by demons. He said that if he and Rise ever had children, he'd want them to live in a world where humans and demons could get along. Even though it felt like an impossible dream, he wanted to try for their sake. Rise squeezed his hand and smiled, telling him that if anyone could make something like that happen, it was him. She promised to stand by his side and help him in any way she could. Fleo felt a little better and thanked her for always supporting him. The next day, chaos erupted as the demon army attacked the kingdom. People fled their homes in panic, but one little girl got left behind while playing in the woods. Just as a demon was about to grab her, Fleo showed up, riding on Rise and wearing a wolf mask. Rise leapt forward, knocking the demon away, and Fleo jumped down, quickly casting a protective barrier around the area. He told the girl to run home as fast as she could, and she bolted without looking back. Rise, however, wasn't too happy. She asked Fleo why he agreed to the princess's request without even negotiating a reward. Fleo explained that if he'd asked for payment, people would think he was just in it for the money. He joked that agreeing to help without anything in return meant he'd already lost the argument with the princess. This made Rise nervous. In her culture, if a man loses to a woman, it means he has to marry her. She asked if the princess could force him into a marriage, but Fleo quickly reassured her that it wasn't going to happen. The demons nearby started noticing Fleo and Rise. They were confused about why a demon wolf was helping humans. Fleo told them he was the protector of the town and warned them to leave if they didn't want trouble. The demons laughed, saying Fleo was underestimating their strength. That's when their leader showed up, a giant red cyclops with a huge club. Rise whispered to Fleo that cyclopes were some of the strongest demons and served directly under Gozel's brother, Isekaied. The cyclops sneered at Rise and insulted her late brother, calling him weak. Rise got angry and told Fleo to let her handle it. She promised not to kill anyone but said this was personal. Fleo nodded and let her step outside the barrier to face the Cyclops. The Cyclops swung his club at Rise, but she was too fast. She dodged his attacks and kept landing small hits. The Cyclops laughed, asking if she thought those tiny strikes would take him down. Rise calmly replied that if she were her old self, she would have torn him apart already. But meeting Fleo had taught her restraint. She said he should be grateful to Fleo, because otherwise, she wouldn't have held back. Then Rise leapt into the air, using her magic to switch positions with the Cyclops. As he stumbled, he threw his club at her, but she switched places again, making him hit himself. Finally, she summoned 4 massive trees using gravity magic and slammed them into the wounds she'd inflicted earlier, pinning him to the ground. The Cyclops ordered his minions to attack, but Fleo used his magic to restrain all of them in an instant. Rise rolled her eyes, saying she could have handled them herself, but Fleo reminded her that they'd already won. Fleo healed the Cyclops, who was confused about why an enemy would help him. Fleo explained that he just wanted them to leave peacefully. Then Fleo summoned a massive lightning spell, warning the demons that if they didn't leave, he'd force them out. Terrified, the demons ran for their lives. The townspeople came out of hiding and thanked Fleo for saving them, but they were nervous about Rise. Fleo assured them that she was his partner and wouldn't hurt anyone. The little girl Fleo had saved earlier came back to thank him as well. Fleo told the villagers they should thank the princess, since she was the one who asked him to help. With that, Fleo and Rise rode off to the next town. Before long, word spread about a mysterious adventurer and his wolf companion who were scaring off demons and saving villages. The news reached Princess Elizabeth, and she felt incredibly grateful. She realized Fleo had done so much for the kingdom, and she vowed to find a way to repay him. Meanwhile, Gozel was watching everything from afar. He was furious when he learned that Isekaied had sent troops without permission. Then one of his minions rushed in with shocking news. Isekaied had staged a coup and taken over the throne. At the demon castle, Isekaied sat proudly on the throne, while his ally, Mama, presented the 2 humans she'd captured. She said she planned to sacrifice them to unleash a deadly spell strong enough to kill Gozel. Isekaied smirked, eagerly waiting for his brother to show up so he could prove he was the new demon king. The next morning, Fleo got unexpected visitors, Gozel and Uliminas. They asked to come inside, and Fleo welcomed them in. As they sat down for tea, Fleo asked why they had come. Gozel explained that Isekaied had overthrown him, and he needed a place to stay. Fleo was stunned. Rise thought Gozel was joking and started laughing, but Uliminas quickly shut her down. Gozel admitted that many demons had turned against him, thinking he was too soft because he didn't want to spill innocent blood. Some even resented how much time he spent blending in with humans. During the coup, Gozel confronted Isekaied but chose not to fight. Instead, he removed his Demon King ring and handed it over, shocking everyone. Now, Gozel explained, he couldn't stay in demon territory anymore. He had nowhere else to go and considered Fleo his only friend. Fleo told Gozel he'd need to discuss it with the rest of the household before deciding. Gozel gathered everyone to explain his situation. Fleo filled them in about Gozel giving up the Demon King throne and having nothing to do with the demon army's recent attacks. The news shocked everyone. Blossom asked if Gozel's army might still be a problem, but Gozel assured them that he had stepped down completely and ordered his troops to stop fighting. Uliminas complained that Gozel had wasted their resources on the intelligence team, but Gozel said it was worth it. The intel team saved innocent lives, and he didn't regret supporting them. He explained that his leadership style had always been different from traditional demons, which is why he took the throne from his father. Now, his brother had done the same to him. He wasn't upset about it. He believed it was bound to happen because of his choices. Fleo asked the group how they felt about Gozel staying with them. Most were okay with it, but Banaza was uneasy. She couldn't trust Gozel, even if he wasn't the Demon King anymore. With some convincing from Rise, Banaza agreed to give Gozel a chance, though she made it clear she would keep an eye on him. Now part of the household, Gozel tried to help out but struggled to fit in. He offered to assist Blossom with her crops, but she refused, saying she wanted to farm without magic. He then went to Bilary at the stables, but the demon horses were terrified of him, so Bilary asked him to leave. Feeling out of place, Gozel visited Fleo's workshop. He admired the detailed armor and tools Fleo had crafted. They talked about how much effort went into the work, and Uliminas, watching from a distance, noticed that Gozel seemed happier now than he ever did as the Demon King. That evening, the group gathered around a bonfire to relax. Most of them were starting to warm up to Gozel, but Banaza stayed quiet and distant. Later that night, unable to sleep, she sat outside, staring at the moon. Fleo and Rise found her and brought her tea and snacks. They reassured her that it was okay to feel uncertain. Banaza thought about all the pain demons had caused humans. She remembered the knights who lost their loved ones and struggled to let go of her doubts. Fleo told her she didn't have to force herself to get along with everyone and could take things at her own pace. Rise reminded Banaza of her contributions to the group, like teaching her how to bake cookies, and encouraged her to believe in herself. The next morning, Banaza told Gozel and Ulaminas she was willing to stay with them but warned them she would be watching closely. If they harmed a human, she would never forgive them. Gozel respected her feelings, but when he offered her a handshake, Banaza refused, saying she'd only trust him fully when she felt ready. Meanwhile, the ex-hero and Tsuya were still on the run. They planned to sell the jewels they had stolen from the demon treasury to fund their escape. The ex-hero talked excitedly about staying in an inn and eating real food, but Tsuya reminded him that they were still wanted criminals and needed to stay under the radar. As they traveled, a dark aura started leaking from the magic bag the ex-hero had stolen. They didn't notice it at first, too focused on their escape, but the aura hinted at trouble brewing. Back at the demon castle, Isekaied was furious that his army wasn't making progress. The kingdom's traps were slowing them down, and the soldiers' morale was dropping. Fleo tried to explain the problem, but Isekaied didn't listen. He ordered his troops to march straight into the traps, even if it meant heavy losses. The demon generals quietly criticized Isekaied's reckless leadership. Under Gozel, the army had been well organized, with careful planning to avoid unnecessary casualties. Without him, everything was falling apart. The generals worried the army would collapse entirely if things didn't improve soon. In the human kingdom, Fleo and Rise attended a lively festival to relax. Rise won first prize at a game stall and was thrilled to receive a hot spring voucher. However, her excitement faded when she realized the voucher required at least 3 people, ruining her plans for a romantic getaway with Fleo. Despite her disappointment, the group decided to go together. At the hot spring, they were warmly welcomed by the staff and given yukatas to wear. Fleo and Rise got a private room, while the rest of the girls shared one. Gozel, assigned his own room, joked about staying with the girls, but they immediately shut him down. Unbeknownst to them, Isekaied and his disguised demon army were also at the hot spring, trying to boost their spirits. Isekaied, in human form, accidentally bumped into Blossom. She apologized and walked away, not realizing who he was. Fleo warned Isekaied to stay calm and not expose their cover. As the groups moved around, Gozel noticed the unusual presence of other demons. Rise advised Gozel and Ulaminas to avoid any interactions with them, especially Isekaied, to prevent conflict. That evening, Rise secretly asked about a special plot development hot spring, determined to make the most of her time with Fleo. Meanwhile, Haya, feeling left out, decided to bother Demolinas in her mindscape. Haya shared her strange plan to find a partner and explained her fascination with Fleo and Rise's plot development. She wanted to try it out. Demolinas explains that baby making can only be done by male and female, but since they are both a girl, that is not possible. However, Haya doesn't give a fuck and want to try. Horrified, kicked Haya out of her mindscape, refusing to be part of her scheme. Fleo and Rise reached the Yanagi hot springs, ready to enjoy the famed fertility bath. Rise was beyond excited, teasing Fleo about testing its effects when they got back home. Fleo, embarrassed but secretly eager, followed her into the steamy waters. Meanwhile, Bylary had her own plans. She nervously approached a shop known for selling, let's say, personal exploration items. Just as she gathered her courage to step inside, Haya popped up, startling her. Haya, on a quest to figure out how to win over Demolinas, decided to join Bylary for research. Before Bylary could protest, Haya pushed her inside, and the two began an awkward and hilarious shopping trip. Back at the bar, Blossom, Banaza, and the others were having a good time. Blossom noticed Banaza stealing glances at Gozel and couldn't resist teasing her about having a crush. Banaza quickly denied it, claiming she was just watching Gozel and Ulaminas because she still didn't trust them. Blossom, not buying her excuse, called Gozel over. He wasted no time, showering Banaza with compliments, which only made her more flustered. Ulaminas, annoyed by Gozel's flirting, muttered under her breath, but Blossom distracted her with drinks, pulling her into the fun. Meanwhile, Isekaied and his disguised demon crew were at another part of the hot springs, eating and drinking like there was no tomorrow. Isekaied demanded entertainment, and Fleo offered to perform a dance. However, her clumsy moves were so bad that Isekaied kicked her off the stage. 2 demons stepped up instead, sparring for Isekaied's amusement. but the fight got too heated, and one of the demons accidentally lost his enchanted necklace. This unleashed a dangerous surge of Melissy energy. At the same time, Blondie Hero and Tsuya finally arrived at the hot springs, thinking they were safe from demons. Blondie reassured Tsuya, promising to take care of her once he sold the gem he had stolen. But just as they started to relax, the gem began absorbing all the Melissy in the area. The energy triggered a transformation, turning Blondie into a monstrous beast. Back at the bar, Balirosa approached Ulaminas for a serious chat. She realized Ulaminas deeply cared for Gozel and wanted him to return to his role as the Dark One. Though Balirosa used to think Ulaminas was childish, she now saw how much Ulaminas admired and loved Gozel. Before they could delve deeper, chaos erupted as the monster tore through the inn. Fleo quickly stepped up, using his magic to stabilize the building and prevent it from collapsing. He asked Rise to investigate the source of the disturbance. Meanwhile, Balirosa, Blossom, and Bolano prepared to fight. Gozel warned them that the monster was too strong, but they insisted on helping. Their determination inspired Gozel to join the fight, and he convinced Ulaminas to help as well. Gozel teleported himself and Ulaminas to a rooftop to assess the situation, with Rise joining them. Isekaied, spotting Gozel, couldn't resist the chance for a showdown and rushed to confront him. Balirosa informed Fleo about the monster and Isekaied's involvement. Fleo trusted Gozel to handle the fight and focused on protecting the building. On the rooftop, Isekaied launched a series of Melissy attacks, but Gozel blocked them effortlessly. Frustrated, Isekaied summoned the Melissy-fueled monster to attack Ulaminas. Gozel intercepted, countering the beast's strikes and keeping her safe. Meanwhile, Rise teleported to Blondie Hero, who was still trapped in the gem's influence. With one powerful punch, she shattered the gem, freeing Blondie and dissolving the monster. However, this left Tsuya falling, but Gozel used his magic to save her, honoring his promise to Fleo to protect humans. The battle intensified as Isekaied went all out, but Gozel stayed calm, countering every move. Isekaied mocked Gozel for being a pacifist, but Gozel, tired of the insults, used a powerful sealing spell to strip Isekaied of his Melissy energy, leaving him weak and powerless. Isekaied was furious, accusing Gozel of betraying their kind by using human magic. Gozel explained that he had perfected the spell to take the throne without unnecessary bloodshed. The hot spring staff, using talismans hidden in the yukatas they gave to guests, bound Isekaied and his crew. They banished the troublemakers from the area, leaving the inn safe once more. Ulaminas, surprised at how easily the situation was handled, checked downstairs and found Rise lecturing Blondie Hero for causing the chaos. Tsuya tried to apologize, but Rise wasn't having it. Once the danger was gone, Fleo repaired the damaged inn with his magic. The group came together to help restore the place, ensuring it was back in business by morning. Blondie Hero and Tsuya found themselves on the run again after causing chaos at the resort. Blondie thought his magic shovel would dig them a clean getaway, but his usual clumsiness landed them in a waterhole, blasting them far away. Back at the resort, the hostess thanked Fleo and his crew for their help in saving the day. She couldn't offer much as a reward but encouraged them to enjoy their stay now that the troublemakers were gone. Rise finally got the relaxing bath she had been craving. She soaked in the hot water, savoring every moment. Ulaminas, scared of water, hesitated but eventually joined in, realizing it wasn't so bad after all. Bylary and Haya were also in the bath, with Haya still not understanding the hype about hot water. Blossom and Bolano joined them, curious about what Bylary had been up to earlier. When Bylary stumbled over her answer, Haya casually revealed they had been testing toys. Bylary turned beet red, denying it, but her reaction made the others even more suspicious. In the men's bath, Fleo and Gozel had a rare moment to chat. Gozel admired Fleo's calm and selfless use of his power, wishing they could work together to stop the war between humans and demons. Fleo, however, doubted magic alone could solve such deep-rooted conflict. He believed in working with people he trusted and doing what he could to create a better future. Gozel offered his full support, shaking hands with Fleo as a sign of their alliance. Later, the crew gathered for a fancy dinner prepared by the resort staff. The hostess treated them to local delicacies, including a special eel pie for Rise, said to boost energy. Everyone had a blast, laughing and enjoying themselves. During dinner, Balirosa approached Gozel to thank him for protecting humans during the earlier chaos. Gozel brushed it off, saying he was just keeping a promise, but Ulaminas couldn't hide her jealousy. After dinner, Rise checked on everyone to ensure they were asleep before sitting with Fleo under the stars. Fleo asked her what she thought about humans. She admitted that while humans seemed weaker, spending time with them had changed her perspective. They weren't enemies anymore, and she respected their strengths. Curious about Fleo's thoughts, she asked why he brought it up. Fleo explained his desire to protect the town and prevent harm in the brewing conflict. He needed Rise by his side to keep him grounded. Rise promised to always support him, reminding him they were building a future for their family. The night ended on a sweet note, leaving Rise in high spirits the next morning. The crew returned home, settling back into their routines. Blossom resumed tending her fields with Saib, and Bolano began teaching her magic class, inspired by Fleo's patient lessons. Haya worked on her magical garden, impressing Blossom with the results that promised a great harvest for town sales. Gozel spent his days learning blacksmithing from Fleo, while Ulaminas questioned why he was so invested in crafting weapons. Gozel hinted at opening a weapon shop, much to Ulaminas's dismay. Balirasa thanked Gozel for the custom armor he had made for her, calling it perfect. Ulaminas, feeling jealous again, started growling at her. Balirasa shifted the topic to the upcoming coronation of Princess Elizabeth. She hoped no demon trouble would ruin the event. Gozel assured her that with Uagard's powers sealed, no attacks were likely. Meanwhile, at the capital, Princess Elizabeth was officially crowned queen. She was greeted warmly by her people but noticed her father was missing from the ceremony. She suspected he had fled, fearing justice for his past misdeeds. Elizabeth swore to reform the kingdom, inspired by the chance Fleo had given her. As for Blondie Hero and Tsuya, they were back to hiding in a hole after another failed scheme. Their situation had become a cycle of chaos and escape, and they seemed no closer to turning things around. That evening, everyone at Fleo's house gathered for dinner. As they laughed and shared stories, Fleo reflected on how much his life had changed since arriving in this world. What started as a lonely journey had become a life filled with true friends and a loving wife. For the first time, he felt like he truly belonged and was content with the happiness he had found. And that's where this video ends. Watch this following video and I will be back with a new one.